Welcome to WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This is the new streamingnetwork.com, the home of Going Solo Media.com. And I am Cece Shatz. I'm your host today on Going Solo Life After Relationship Loss on our wonderful station here. We are the #1 internet singles talk network. And today what we're going to talk about, we do have a guest coming with us, I'm hoping a little bit later. But what we're going to talk about before she gets here, we're going to talk about, that special connection in relationships, right? I'm all about I'm fondly referred to as the Doyenne of relationship building. But, what do we do after we do the building of relationships, after we make that initial connection with someone? We have to continue strengthening that connection. And so we're going to talk just briefly about that real quick, and then we'll have our guests come up. But of course, we need to strengthen that relationship. And as we do that, we want to identify everyday moments that contribute to feeling of calmness and connectiveness and being positive, truly sharing those moments with the individual, the relationship that you have with them, not only maybe what you have now in the future, but also in the past, what you had with them before. This also helps with that creating that bondness that you have. Consider the other person in the relationship, what truly matters to them. Have you really gone in depth to understand what that other person, what they value, what they understand, what they're like, what makes them tick. So truly understand a little bit more about them. And then the other thing is make it a priority to fit positive connection moments into your regular interactions, even when there is stress in a relationship. So even when there's stress not only around you, but within your environment in that relationship, you want to continue to be positive. You want to continue to make the opportunity that challenges that are happening today and around you are not going to affect how you feel about that individual. So as we continue to build our relationships, we want to make sure that we strengthen them as we go along. So now let's get with our topic today. Our topic today is going to be the bonding project, and we have a wonderful guest with us. Let's bring her forward. Hello, Elisabeth. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it is great having you here with us today. Elisabeth, we fondly call her Ellie, and is it Sheff? Is that how you pronounce your last name?
It's Eli, Sheff.
Eli Sheff. Oh, I messed it up all the way, but we thank you for
That's
correcting
okay.
me. You're
No
a
problem.
PhD and a CSE, and we're going to talk about the bonding project. And so, I found this to be quite interesting because, as we go through relationships, right, we always think about the traditional relationships that years back, whatever, however we think they are. We call them traditional. But the reality is times are changing. People are being more open, more, out out there and really exploring them, not only themselves, but other people as they go through it. So let's talk a little bit about you. Now, you are an expert, you're an expert witness. You're also a relationship coach, an educator, and a consultant. So tell us a little bit about what you do in your everyday life and how you got into really making this a project for you, the bonding project.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm a sociologist,
Mm-hmm.
and as an intellectual, I tend to intellectualize things that frighten me. So when I was a young person, 22, I fell in love with someone who wanted a non-monogamous relationship. And I was really freaked out by that. And
Mm-hmm.
I was really upset, but I really wanted to be with this person. Like it was the first time in my life that I had really like fallen head over heels in love with someone. And I felt like if he needed non-monogamy, then I was going to need to try it just to see how it worked. So that really started for me kind of an ongoing interest
Mm-hmm.
in diverse relationships and how they work and when they work, and whether when people are nervous about it, whether that's kind of a reaction to society and saying, oh well, I should be monogamous because that's what society says, or if it's a true reaction, like, no, I really don't want to do that. And it took me 25 years of studying in depth to realize, no, I really don't want to do that. I tried so hard to be polyamorous and it just did not work. It's not in my heart to do it. But during all those years of studying polyamory, it became abundantly clear to me that some people really are multiplistic or non-monogamous by orientation. Like it's a way they're wired and they can't change it, much the way I can't change my singular heart. Like I've tried so hard to want to fall in love with multiple people and I just can't. When I'm in love with one person, I'm really not interested in other people. But it made me wonder if, I, with access to all of this information and reading literally thousands of books on this topic, if I am this confused, how are other people managing this? Maybe with fewer resources. So when my friend Jess came to me with this idea for an online quiz that people could take to look at, kind of consider their different relationship formations and options, I thought, oh, now that is a fantastic idea. That's just incredible. So we've been working on the quiz. Jess and I started easily 6 years ago, and we had all these great ideas that stayed as ideas. And then when everybody went on lockdown for the pandemic, we had time to work on it a little more intensively. And we added more people to our team to help us really implement and get things done. So
Right.
now the bonding project is on its second iteration. Our first test looked at kind of all sorts of bonding all lumped together. And while people really enjoyed it and found it useful in many ways, we got a lot of feedback that it was trying to do too much with one test. We were lumping romance and sex and emotion and social and like everything in one test, and it was too much. So now we've broken that out and changed the tests significantly to where we're looking at bonding, but around different resources. So far, the tests we have out are sex, money, romance, and cohabitation. And we're working on co-parenting and time. And we'll, come up with other tests too as we go. But
Well, I found this so fascinating because, as our show is going solo life after divorce, a lot of people do explore, start to explore themselves and try to start to understand how they feel about different things, and what they thought maybe was the love of their life have found that it's not. And so they're looking at different ways and different ways to communicate. And I myself, I find that I can be in love with different people, and I love them differently, but sexually, I can only be with one partner, It's like you give it all, you lay it down, so to speak. But I know, but I have friends that I love deeply that are just friends, you know what I mean? But
absolutely.
they're like, you have your family members and you love them in a different way, because sometimes you have to tolerate some of the things that they do, right? Because they're your family. They're not your chosen friends, and your chosen friends are the ones that you love in a different way. So you find that you're exploring relationships and building them in a different way. And that's like at the beginning of the show, I talked about strengthening your relationship, how important that is to continue strengthening the relationships that you have. And so, yeah, I mean, I find this very fascinating. And then sexually, I have some friends that are, looking at their relationships far different than I do. And, do I say that they're wrong? No. I mean, it's whatever's right for them is right for them. And as long as it works with whatever their partners are, so be it. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it. So tell us a
Absolutely.
little bit about, today's society. We are now starting to create this big shift, I think, of acceptance, because before it was so tainted, right? If you had even even racial, we've opened our eyes to being the fact that that's not necessary to look at racial discrimination on any way. And now we're looking at our way about gender, and being more open to that. So what do you think about like today's society, how that is broadening our horizon?
Absolutely. I think we have more sex and gender diversity
Hmm.
than any other society that we've been able to document
Hmm.
in history. Um, and I think it's kind of a reaction in a way to this kind of false dichotomy that came with colonialism. Like pre-colonial times, there
Hmm.
were more than two genders. There was a lot more diversity. And when colonial, the Europeans came and spread Christianity around the world, it really tamped down on sex and gender diversity and made two sexes, and sex was bad, all sorts of things.
Hmm.
Now I think we're having a significant reaction to that, of not only have we reclaimed the idea of a third gender, but now we've got 275 genders. I just made that up. I don't know how many exactly there are. There are as many genders as there are people to claim their own gender.
Hmm.
So I actually find it incredibly refreshing
Hmm.
to have people kind of exploding the tiny boxes that were so painful for so many people to live within. And I have to say, I am really excited for men to finally get a little more room. Like, we've had a massively expanded gender box for women over
Hmm.
the last 100 years. Women's gender has been expanding and expanding. And it's been really good for us. I identify as a woman. But men's boxes have really barely shifted. We have very strict ideas about masculinity. And I
Hmm.
think until we value men moving in to what was formerly kind of women's work,
Hmm.
then that work will remain devalued until we value men who want to parent full time and
Hmm.
be like, hey, good job, dad. Not just, oh, good job, you took your kids to the park once this week, but good job, you stay home full time while your partner goes out
Hmm.
to work. And actually support those men instead of being like, well, yeah, I guess good job a little bit, but what's wrong with you that you're not working? Which is, I
Right,
think, really what we're doing to men
right,
right now.
right. So we
Um,
want that equality, right? I mean, as women, we're
Absolutely.
saying, oh, yeah, we want that equality. But then we question about when we have the equality, why the other partner is not also doing the same as we're doing. So it's like, yeah, we've got this
Right.
crazy way of
Or
thinking.
we want them to be the new men,
Hmm.
but still do all the things the old men used to do
Right.
too. And
Hmm.
it's just not feasible. Women were in that position for a long time. Be
Hmm.
the new women and still do all the housework and all the childcare while you're earning money, things like
Hmm.
that. And we've
Right.
really pushed back on that.
Hmm.
Not that those expectations have gone away completely. Women
Hmm.
statistically still do significantly more housework and unpaid work around children and cleaning and things like that than men do.
Right.
Partially because no one values that work. And if we
Hmm.
valued it more and valued the men who did it instead of giving them side eye,
Hmm.
we could all have more equality. So I think the death of colonialism is one part of it. The
Mhm.
other thing I think that has changed really everything is internet communications. Because now with social media, people who used to feel really alone, people who felt like maybe they didn't want to have sex at all, they were just not interested in sex, they did not experience sexual desire, and felt like they were alone, now can look that up online and realize there are hundreds of thousands of people who identify as asexual.
Mhm.
And the idea that there's nothing wrong with them, they are not malfunctioning, and they're not alone, like that can be a real, not only an identity someone can value about themselves, but they can find other people. They can find community
Mhm.
around it. And that is the same for a wide range of gender expression, and not just asexuals, but LGBTQIA, people into consensual non-monogamy, people into BDSM. There's just so much more diversity and so many more ways to find it. And I think this diversity always existed. Like there's always been gender diversity, but
Oh,
it was really hidden under
mhm.
colonialism and really difficult to find. And the internet has just blown the lid off
Right.
of people being able to find each other and connect.
Yeah, be able to have that connection because, they often feel, that they're the odd one out, and in reality, they're really not, so they're able to definitely connect with those. Another topic that we hear a lot, because, I also do a lot about the dating, is that, women have taken on a more masculine role, whereas you were saying men sometimes are taking on a more feminine role. And so that kind of makes a little bit of a hiccup, so to speak, when you're dating, right? Because, if a woman is more of the masculine role because she's, in business, she's a leader, she's, all of this kind of, she's doing this all day long, then how does she stop that and then become the more feminine? And so that this creating like a bit of a hiccup in the relationship um connection, the building of that type of relationship. And so of course, they're having a bit of a problem with dating. So what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on that?
I think that the kind of labeling passivity
Hmm.
as feminine does a disservice to everyone. I
Hmm.
think there are ways to be assertive within femininity, or labeling like people who are asking for what they want or making things happen, asking people out,
Hmm.
labeling that kind of directness as masculine, I think really does a disservice to women who are then like, oh, I'm being masculine when I do this, or men who maybe don't want to do that. And somehow, if they're not doing that, then they're being feminine. I think that masculine and feminine, for me at least, are more kind of stylistic options, the way we wear gender, and not necessarily who we are on the inside. And I think that's easier for me to say because who I am on the inside really matches my outside. So in
Mm.
that way, people call me cisgender. I'm on the same side. I didn't change my gender. I was assigned female at birth and it feels comfortable to me. So it's easy
Mhm.
for me to say, oh, like who we are on the inside doesn't have that much to do with gender, but it really does for
Mhm.
a lot of people. And I think the people that their insides don't match their outsides, that's where you really run into the difference between, oh, gender really is something people experience
Mhm.
on the inside. But when we're labeling activities or ways to be in the world with gender, I
Mhm.
think that's where we start to slip into those, oh, if this action or this way to be in the world is feminine, then, and you're masculine, you can't be that way. And I
Mhm.
would love to see gender be something that's expansive and fun and playful and optional, rather than this, this is what masculinity is, and it has to fit in this tiny little
Right.
space, and you can only be this one way.
Mhm.
So if people are feeling constrained by those gender roles, that they need to pretend some version of masculinity at work and then pretend some version of femininity at home,
Mhm.
that can really put a lot of pain into their lives that I
Mhm.
think is maybe not all that necessary. Like if we all just relaxed
Mhm.
around gender and let people be who they want to be and express themselves how they want to, and look beyond the kind of trappings of that to recognize humans are acting in a
Mhm.
certain way, and it's not a gender thing to ask for what you want or to give someone else support or
Mhm.
something, and
I
just
love
let
this. Yeah, I love
humans in general do their thing.
Yeah, Eli, you're right, because I know often I hear, after divorce, people don't know who they are, right? Because they're so used to being and being a way that that their partner wanted them to be, that they really have to get back in touch with who they truly are, and maybe they are, a little bit more of a go-getter, or maybe they, have a passion for something that they kind of squashed, in a relationship. And we shouldn't do that, because you're not truly being who you are. You want to be accepted for who you are and enjoyed for who you are, to be able to say, okay, this is me. And, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be things about a person that maybe you might not like it, or, however you're kind of coexisting together, right? You have to kind of blend a little bit, but you shouldn't have to change who you are. They should be able to accept who you are and honor that as you are honoring them. And so often we don't do that. We think we have to change or adapt to someone else, or because of whatever this traditional generational type of arrangement we've had in life, right? Leave It to Beaver. I don't know if you were around when Leave It to Beaver was on,
The
those kind of
reruns.
shows. Yeah, Dick Van Dyke and whatever. It's like, yeah, it's you wanna, I don't know. The world's changed, and I think we need to catch up with it, right? We need to be like that.
Absolutely, and in
Mhm.
fact, that's one of the things I really love about the
Mhm.
bonding project, is
Mhm.
it helps people think about, what do I actually want? Not what does society tell me I should want,
Mhm.
but what do I really want? And that can be frightening sometimes. Or if you're used to having just these two choices, and then you realize there's all these other choices, that can also be totally overwhelming. So
Mhm.
having some kind of online test to look at, do you want to bond one to one to many to many, or solo? That
Mhm.
alone can be mind-blowing, of like, "Oh, I have choices, like, I don't have to just do this one thing either that I always did in the past or society told me I should do."
Mhm.
And some people have also called it the polyamory test, which it's not.
Yeah,
Although I
yeah,
am.
I agree with you. I don't think it is like that.
No.
I'll tell you a story that my mother said to me. I she because when I graduated from high school, I married my high school sweetheart, right? And then we ended up getting divorced. Then the next guy I dated, right? I ended up marrying him. And then we got a divorce. Then the next guy I dated, I ended up marrying it. And so I never really dated, right? I never really went out. And my mother said to me, she said, "You don't have to marry every man you sleep with." You're coming from your mom, you're thinking like, what? And so here I had this way of thinking, this traditional way thinking that yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna lay it down, if I'm gonna, give myself in wholeheartedly all the way, then yeah, then it should be marriage, it should be whatever. But what I was finding is that I wasn't really developing the right relationship for me, because I already got into it too quick, that I didn't see everything, so I wasn't really able to experience things. So you have to, my philosophy is you have to experience things for a season to see truly if that person is who you truly want to be with in all aspects, as you're growing and developing. And so I like the bonding project, because I think that it allows us to put down that veil and allow you to really look at your life, and with no judgment, do whatever it is that you truly want to do. But take the test, better understand yourself, and be open with it, because as we're moving forward in life, I think that's really what we need to do. And whatever you choose is fine. We're not saying you can't be traditional, we're not saying you can be different. Whatever. And I don't even want to say it's different, because for you it's not different. For you
Right.
it's your norm, right? It's your thing. And so why, I don't want to say what somebody else prefers is right or wrong. It's just really truly up to them. And so yeah. But
And maybe
mhm,
you don't want to be in a relationship at all with someone else. Maybe a
mhm,
romantic relationship isn't the right thing for you, or not the right thing right now. I myself got
mhm,
divorced a few years ago and
mhm,
have not been able to date since then. I've been so emotionally devastated. I haven't even wanted to date.
mhm,
And being like really fully single and really embracing the singleness and
mhm,
not shaping myself to date other people has been really freeing for me. I kind
mhm.
of thought I would be lonely, and actually, I have been loving the not dating.
Right,
So I
right.
think, part of like your going solo
Mhm.
thing in this network is it's okay to be solo. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's better
Mhm,
to be
mhm.
solo.
Yeah, and date yourself, really start to
Absolutely.
understand yourself, and figure out what it is that you truly want, what makes you tick, what makes you happy, what makes you sad, what you want, what you don't want. You start to understand yourself a lot, and then I think you raise your level of vibration, and then you attract those into your life that it's at your level. And so that's important. And I've talked to many people, because I'm, getting older in that latter part of my life, and so it's a whole different generation. And so a lot of those individuals are thinking, I might want someone in my life, but I may not want that permanency to it. Not necessarily that they want to go out and be with other people. It's that they just don't want to have that traditional type of relationship, but they want to have something in their lives. Then you have the ones that are, having problems sexually, but they still want a relationship, They still want a woman in their life, or vice versa. The woman still wants a man in their life. And so it's kind of what they're doing is they're bonding in a different way, right? Of what's good for them and how they can make each other happy. There's nothing wrong with that, Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially as people get older, I
Mhm.
think a lot of women get less and less invested in basing their self-worth on what someone else thinks of them, which is it's difficult for everyone, but it's
Mhm.
especially difficult for women because we are socialized to be
Mhm.
very concerned about what other people think of us, and do they like us, and do they think we're pretty, and that's kind of a source of value for us.
Mhm.
And especially as you get older, you tend to be a little less concerned about that, and less interested in accommodating someone else just to have a partner.
Mhm.
Potentially happier on your own than doing things to keep or get a partner that
Mhm.
feel bad. Now, on the flip side of that, some people in really lasting relationships have figured out how to accommodate each other and how to work things out over the decades. And when they stay together but figure out kind of how to let each other change and change with each other and accommodate each other when they change in different ways,
Mhm.
I think those relationships can be really happy too. I think it's the people
Mhm.
who don't allow for change. Like, this is the way we are, and that's what we agreed to 46 years ago. So that's the way it's always going to be.
Right.
That kind of stagnation, or almost like a calcification where you fossilize into one shape, it just doesn't work very
Right.
well.
Mhm. Right. So what you're doing is you're taking the view off of the actual traditional way of thinking and you're putting it on the value of that individual. You're really thinking about that person, yourself, connecting with that and that individual is valuable to you. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing now in relationships. They're starting to think they're not necessarily, I mean, I'm not saying some, they're not going to get married. They might get married. They might not get married. But what they're really doing is they're focusing on the individual themselves versus on what, society says that we need to do or they think we need to do. And so, yeah, I love this idea of the bonding project. And so I want to share that with everyone. If you guys want to go to www.bondingproject.com, you can find the information there. And then, of course, you can also reach Elisabeth, and that's www.elisabeth, and her last name is sheff.com. So you can also find the website there. So now, when the bonding project itself, if you're going to go in and take the test, like how long will it take you to take this test?
That's such a good question. It really depends on how much you have to think about it
Mm-hmm.
and how much you write. And we've got a few open-ended questions.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have to think that deeply about it, like the answer off the top of your head, you could take one of the tests in 10 minutes.
Okay.
It's free,
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes. If, however, you've never really considered these questions and they're blowing your mind a little bit, like, oh, I never thought about what I wanted, and now I'm not completely sure. I need to actually consider this.
Mm-hmm.
It can
Mm-hmm.
be a fantastic opportunity to, it can be worth like a year and a half of therapy to give you these insights seriously.
Right.
Thinking through, oh, who am I and what do I want?
Mm-hmm.
By having people ask you these questions. So I'm gonna say anywhere from 10 minutes to the rest of your life, depending
Right.
on how much like how deeply you're thinking about it and how much the questions stir up in you. For some people, it's really easy. They think about, for instance, around money. Do I
Mhm.
want to bond with other people? Do I want to share money with people?
Right.
Do I expect to be
Mhm.
able to support them financially and them to be able to support me financially?
Mhm.
A lot of people are pretty clear on that.
Mhm.
When you get to romance, it's a little more difficult
Right.
sharing
Mhm.
that or
Mhm.
not. And sexuality on some level is ironically a little more cut and dry for a
Mhm.
lot of people than romance is so murky and so threatening on some level. Like, sex is just sex, whatever. But romance, now we're taught, now we've really got some importance here, and it's really going to have a big impact
Mhm.
on how we feel and things like that. So,
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that as we get older, you know, not everybody I think feels that way, but about sex, but it is, like you said, a little bit more cut and dry. But romance, their idea of what they feel romance is, And I've heard this over and over about people, like, oh, will I bring flowers? Then some will think, well, okay, let's, all right, but what does that do? What does that mean? That not, maybe it doesn't mean the person that's going to receive the flowers may not feel like, okay, that's not a big thing, but actually the person giving it obviously feels it is a big thing because they're going out of their way to do it. So their romance is, they're not on the same page with that, which is fine, but it's something to understand. And then the big, huge on the older, believe it or not, is financial. You think it would be on the younger couples would be financial, but on the olders, because they've actually, now they've created, maybe wealth for themselves. They're looking at spending the rest of their life, and am I going to have the income to continue, to be able to do that, and do I want to share that with somebody else or whatever? And that becomes a real stickler for people. That really
Absolutely.
becomes an issue. And so these items that we discuss, even when we're younger, are still equally as important when we're older. And if anyone's out there listening, you want to make a comment, we would love to hear from you, your view, or any questions that you might have. We'd love to hear that. But yeah, I find this very, very interesting. And I like the idea of being open-minded, you know, and, Eli, and really understanding that it's okay to tap into who we are, what we believe in, and maybe even create a shift in ourselves, because even what we believed in today may not be what we believe in tomorrow, right? And so
Absolutely.
when we're open-minded about different things, now there might be some, we might draw a line in the sand on some things, because of our ethics or whatever, or our principles or whatever we feel, religious beliefs or whatever. But then again, maybe we'll open our minds up to be more gracious to other people and their way of thinking. I think that's what's truly important, is to not be so, you know, so stick in the mud, right? About your way of thinking all the time. Yeah. So it's like, like when you're a parent, you say it's my way or the highway. Well, it can't always be like that, Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think too, it can how other people deal with their relationships
Hmm.
can feel really threatening to us.
Hmm.
For instance, if you want monogamy and then it seems like everyone else is doing non-monogamy, that can feel really threatening and unstable and scary and weird. And facing those feelings and moving through them and deciding, okay, I actually don't need to be threatened by other people's non monogamy. If they want to be non monogamous, rock on, go them.
Hmm.
It's okay for me to be monogamous and to want exclusivity in my relationship. That is totally fine. Don't judge me for my desire for exclusivity. Don't judge you for your desire for multiple partners. We
Right.
can all be happier.
Hmm.
And don't judge yourself.
Hmm.
If you change over time, like people change over time. We used to have this idea, especially around sex and gender, that
Hmm.
if you changed somehow, then it wasn't legitimate. Like whatever you were before was a phase and somehow not real. And that's patently false.
Right.
Research indicates that people
Hmm.
do change over time
Hmm.
in all sorts of ways, including around sex and gender. That is the actual state, and this kind of falsely frozen state of no change whatsoever
Hmm.
that in the past we've labeled as the right way to be, or like, oh, then you're real somehow. Like you're a
Right.
real
Right. Yeah.
heterosexual if you are never feel attraction to someone else, or someone of a similar gender. Um,
Hmm.
and it's just not true. Like people do change over time, and
Hmm.
allowing ourselves and the others around us to change and accommodating each other actually gives us a lot more resilience over time, being able to change
Hmm.
and flow with changing circumstances, shifting to meet new circumstances in life actually makes you way more resilient than being like, no, we always did it this way. This is the way it's got to be. It can't be any other way than this.
Mm-hmm.
So that frequently, maybe it worked in 1973, but it's really not working anymore.
Right, right. I love you. I think it's great. I think you're really on it, and it's it's all really creating a lifestyle that you want, that you're comfortable with it, that you want the how you want to live. It's not for me to judge or for you to judge me. It's really about what's comfortable for myself, and then whoever comes into my life. Whoever, maybe my partner, multiple partners, or whatever you truly decide. But it's really it allows us to be open-minded about different things and not judging other people. And I think that truly is a wonderful thing, to give grace to other people and allow them to be who they are, and accept that. So I think this is very cool. So anyone that's interested, like she said, it takes like 10 minutes to do the initial, I guess, quiz or whatever. It's called the bondingproject.com. Go on there and do it. Is there a charge for that?
No, the tests are free.
Okay.
We are hoping this has been a labor of love
Mm-hmm.
for us. It costs us about $400 a month to support the websites and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point, we're going to have to start charging
Right.
people for something, because we've been just spending our own money on this so far. And until it's really working well and
Mhm.
it's really good, we don't want to charge people
Right. So it's
for it.
kind of
And
in
even then, we
beta.
want it to be
Yeah.
really affordable, not have cost be a barrier for people to be able to consider things. So just for you to know, we're taping this in January of 2024, and
Mm-hmm.
we are still working on the results, how to deliver the results in an automated way. Right now, it still takes a human going in and doing, I don't understand, they do a thing with a computer program.
Right, right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how to fix that.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you don't get your results right away, relax. We're working on that. And once we fix that bug, then we'll feel more comfortable charging a low fee, a small fee, just so we can pay for the website.
Right, right. Well, and then also you are, a relationship coach. And so if someone, looks and they feel like, they have some questions about themselves, and they're looking to, move forward in their lives, and they kind of feel a little bit stuck, certainly they can reach out to you, and you can maybe help them with that. And so we want to make sure that we have your information out there so that people can definitely contact you. But this is I would love to have a glass of wine and sit and talk about this all night long, because it'd be a lot of
That
fun.
sounds like fun.
Yeah, it would be a lot of fun to talk about. And I like being able to explore, our minds and the way we think about things. And I have found, just like, and I don't normally talk about politics, but I have found the more I listen to people, the more I learn, right? And the way I thought when I first went into a maybe conversation has definitely changed as I go through. And I think it's the same thing when something like this, when we're talking about our lives and what we want in it and how we feel about certain things. It's nice to hear other people and how they feel about it and what they're doing, because we want to keep ourselves open to just enlightenment. I think, I hate to say, people don't like the word change, but if when we enlighten ourselves, we start really figuring out what is good for us, and what we do want in our lives. And so we create that directional move, that the movement of choice. And I think that's very important. So it's a delight to have you on. I want to thank you so much for spending the time here with us today.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
It is great having you here. Well, you guys, we're talking about the bonding project, and we have our guest here, Elisabeth, Sheff. if I'm saying it correctly. I'm not sure. But
You
of
did.
course, you can find all the information on thebondingproject.com. And then, of course, you can also the website, it's ELISABETHSHEFF.com. So go ahead and check that out. You guys are listening to our show here today. Our show is Going Solo, Life After Relationship Loss on WGSN DB Going Solo Network. We are a radio, TV, and a podcast station. We're the #1 internet singles talk network. I am your host here, Cece Shatz. You can reach me on Going Solo Network at gmail.com. Our website here is goingsolomedia.com. And then I also have my personal one, which is goingsolonetwork.com. It is so great having you, and we love you. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope that we'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Bye.